What I told her about her.
Hello.
Say that again?
How are you?
All right.
Hello.
Oh,
Hello. How are you?
Free falling?
don't walk back down.
Free
Walk
falling?
back down.
What the, is that the song he did with the Traveling Wilburys?
I don't know.
No, that was solo.
That
Yeah,
was solo?
Well, no, that was with the Heartbreakers.
the Heartbreaker.
Heartbreaker.
That was the Heartbreaker.
Like her and then Line or something like
Free
that.
falling, I like that.
It's alright.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was the that's Traveling Wilburys.
yeah, it's all right now. It's all right.
Not that.
There's several.
Yeah, that was a good one.
I'm gonna sit up here and keep an eye on you too.
My guy was in the car.
That was Tom Petty, Bob Dylan, Jeff Lynne from ELO, Roy Orbison, and Jim Pearson.
Can you be on my team? Whatever tribute team there is.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. Before you go into today's lesson, announcements, things like that. Some news.
Sister Arnold is home from the hospital. Jan and Trudy have headed south for a week or two, I think. Don, I think I accidentally mixed up the date on the prime timer luncheon on the calendar. I have it as the third Monday. Do you want it changed back to the second for this month, or do you want to leave it as it is?
No, we'll just keep it the way it's supposed to be.
Keep it on the second one?
Yeah.
Everybody knows.
Okay.
Everybody know you do.
Yes.
This is a card of encouragement for Nellie's sister-in-law. I'm going to pass it around and have everybody sign it. She was in the hospital, she was in a nursing home and then in the hospital, and she's got a lot of other problems, so send her a card of encouragement, and we'll have it Sunday morning too, Terry, so everybody has it.
And Richard, is Joe doing well?
Yes,
Good.
yes.
We succeeded in surprising Nellie Sunday. I almost let it slip. Y'all slipped in one Sunday, and
We were looking back there and saying, when you could announce it this morning because nobody's there. So he gets up and I could kind of feel it gearing up, and I looked back there and I was like,
somebody was in front of you, and I couldn't even see you back there.
As someone that song means a lot, it's amazing how often you see people come in and stuff, and then sometimes you sit down later on, you look around like, when did they get here?
yeah.
Okay, we know about the Vegas shooting, unfortunately. And we also need to keep in mind the shooting in Tennessee at the Church of Christ last week too. There hasn't been much in the news about that, so I can't know anything about it or not. Dick, will you open the prayer, please? Thank you.
Our God and Father, as we gather here this evening to study from your word, we thank you that knowing that it will be fruitful for our lives, that it will help us to build a closer relationship with you. And Father, we thank you for being there for us in the good times and the bad times. We pray for so many of our number that are sick and ill and ailing, and our family members. We pray for each one of them. We pray that your comforting arms will encircle them and that they will be aware that you do care. In Christ's name we pray.
Okay, so today I guess we're starting what Terry's calling a great chapters / great passages study of the Bible. And He's made a list that most of us men have seen that list and chosen what to teach on. David in Proverbs 3, I don't want to say strong-armed it in here, but I kind of wanted it in here, suggested it. Everyone has different favorite books and favorite sections of the Bible. For me, Proverbs, Ephesians, James, the Gospel of John. Certain ones tend to stick out more to me. I know a lot of people love the Psalms. I can take the Psalms in maybe small doses per se. There's consistency about Proverbs, I think, that appeals to me more per se. But anyways, so I kind of wanted to get something maybe a bit different in there that we don't always, because when you think great passage or sections, you got your 1 Corinthians 13, various chapters from the Gospels about the birth or the crucifixion, Hebrews 11, Philippians 2, per se, we quote that extensively all the time. 2 Samuel, or 1 Samuel 17, David and Goliath, things that we immediately go, oh, I know exactly where, I know what this is. And maybe Proverbs 3 isn't as familiar with us in some ways. To me, it's very familiar, and that's mainly because when I like to read the book, and last 2 years, a couple years ago, their Bible was based on Proverbs. So if you ever help with the last 2 years' Bible bowl, you will learn you'll get very familiar with these books after a while. Because in helping the kids get ready for it, you end up studying it a lot yourself. And that was kind of the case with this. And Proverbs, for me, is one of those few books of the Bible that at times in my life I will read it and I will immediately be hit by something there that says to me, Stephen, you're not living the way you're supposed to. And in some ways, you could also go to Ecclesiastes and find that out too. But that's going to feel a bit different. Proverbs and Ecclesiastes are kind of like a happy brother and a grumpy brother. They're both pretty much linked to the same idea of obey God and keep His commandments. Proverbs is more on the optimistic side. Ecclesiastes says, follow God and keep His commandments. Most likely good things will happen to you. Sometimes they won't. Proverbs says, just do what God says and everything will be fine. He doesn't necessarily give us that measure of hope all the time that we might find in it, but Proverbs considered one of the books about wisdom. It's a book of poetry / wisdom literature, along with Job, Psalms, Ecclesiastes, and a Song of Solomon actually has wisdom in it too, believe it or not. They say most likely Solomon wrote most of the Proverbs, probably when he was younger. There are several reasons for this. We know that either from Kings or from Chronicles, somewhere in there it says he wrote a ton of stuff. He wrote a lot. I don't remember exactly which book it is, but he wrote Proverbs. He probably wrote Ecclesiastes. And there's another reason why there's Solomon in here too, and I also think that has to do with the fact that he's constantly mentioning women. We know Solomon had a lust problem and he had a woman problem. Man, he couldn't have enough of them. It's true. And he's constantly bringing up adulteresses and women in here, usually saying to avoid them. He didn't take his own advice apparently, but that's for another lesson. So Proverbs 3, verses 1 and 2. My son, do not forget my law, but let your heart keep my commands. For length of days and long life and peace they will add to you. Okay, so I guess we're starting out with some of the very Old Testament. We're starting with mentioning law and commands. Now, it's not necessarily a big capital L law, but you could transpose that in there. So, in other words, Solomon is reminding us here through the form he's using of a father speaking to a son, to remind us to keep laws and commandments in life. If you do that, you're obedient, and obedience in Proverbs equals life. Disobedience equals death. Verses 3 and 4, let not mercy and truth forsake you, bind them around your neck, write them on the tablet of your heart, and so find favor and high esteem in the sight of God and man. Okay, so mercy and truth, what are these? What can they give you? I'd say probably respect. And remember, social standing was it's important to us per se, but it's very important in the culture of the Hebrews. And I found here's something that says, let not mercy and truth forsake you. And part of me went, how can mercy and truth forsake you? Wouldn't you be forsaking them? And I'm trying to wrap my head around this idea of it being the other way around. And maybe I'm just misreading it. Any thoughts, ideas on this?
Maybe they want you to have that type of mercy on other people, and obviously truth would be another good thing for you to have.
Okay.
Plus, it's good for people to have mercy on us, or God to have mercy on us.
And as it's saying too, it says, bind them around your neck, write them on the tablet of your heart. And the Israelites were told to do that with the words of the law, with things like that too. They say, bind these on your heart, stick them on your board, remember them, keep them with you always.
I've seen a couple like movies where it's involved a Jewish family, and they have that
Oh, yeah.
written on their walls, which to us is like, what's that all about? But you can see where it's talking about.
Yeah, and it's not just having it on something physical that you can touch, but having it inside here too.
Right.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
About having, they had the writings on the wall. Today, we put a note on the refrigerator,
Well, I remember
which is the
when
same kind of thing.
Wildness built their house, before their walls were put up, we went over and wrote scriptures, I guess would be inside their walls, but still, it's the idea.
Stephen, I think it's a really sad sometimes, and I don't want to be too harsh on us here, but sometimes people get so locked into truth, they lose that kindness dimension, or my translation says, let kindness and truth, let kindness and truth, do not let kindness and truth leave you. And why is it, a rhetorical question, but why is it that some people who are so strong in the truths sometimes come across as being almost heartless and unkind, or lacking maybe mercy? I don't know why that is. We find passages like this where they're locked together. And I don't know how we can be very effective at presenting the truth if we're so lopsided about it that we don't have the love of God or the mercy of God or kindness of God with it.
Part of it is the way you deliver it, I think, and the other part, though, has to come to the receiver, is on the person receiving it. It's a two-way street. It's not a case of you just say it and the person accepts it, or vice versa. It's Vic. I overheard Vic earlier saying something earlier that a lot of people aren't in churches anymore because of fear of judgment and things like that and such. And there's a difference between outright judgment and saying, being truthful while still having mercy, of saying, there's a problem here, there's some sin here, but we can work at this, we can find a way out of this, and God can forgive. Instead of just saying, you are wrong and you will burn.
And even in our discovery of truth individually, where would we be without mercy? So how can we dispense truth without also being full of mercy and kindness to others who have stumbled, or who maybe disagree with us?
Sometimes the hardest part to me, I really believe all of this problem. This is one of my favorite books too, but how can you get a person to believe, to understand when they don't really think there's a problem at all?
Good question. I think everyone's probably trying to figure that out for our whole lives. And do you have a comment, Don?
I don't know where I got this from, but this, a little note here, it says, I told the truth, a little less than totally honest, but all true. That is imperfect honesty in an imperfect world. And that's the way we live today.
When the legend becomes fact, print the legend. Okay, I guess to answer Mom's concern, there is certain change that has to come from within. And whether that is a eventual pricking of the conscience of someone going, you know what, maybe what I'm doing is not right. That may have to be it, but we can only do so much. At some point, the person themselves has to go, I'm not living the way I should. I'm not doing what God wants me to do, things like that. And sometimes the people haven't been. I have this bad assumption of assuming that everyone has had the exact same training and moral background that I do. And so when I see someone living in sin or doing something, my first reaction is to go, what they're doing is not right, and they should turn around. But then I've realized over the years that, wait, maybe they didn't grow up here like I did. Maybe they haven't spent as much time in this. Maybe they don't even know. Remember, we wouldn't know sin if it wasn't for the law. We would just be walking around in the hay somewhere, and hopefully God will be merciful on us in the end, but we don't know. Jeannie?
You know, I'm thinking about Terry's question is, you know, how can we be sometimes people that are so well-schooled in what the facts are, what truth is, can be so unmerciful. I'm thinking about the personalities of when you deal with children, even small children. I mean, people bring their personalities to the way they view things a lot. And we make errors as we grow up and we let our personalities lead and don't submit them to God. I think we make errors. You know, there's rule followers and everything has to be by the rules. But when you become mature, I think it all has to come down to humility. If you can't show mercy, how can you expect to be shown mercy?
The very argument you just made seems to me like it requires kindness. You know, that we have to step back and think, well, not everybody's been raised in the same setting. Not everybody has had the same privilege of hearing sermons and Bible studies, and so that ought to get us off of our high horse and allow us to be a little bit more humble in the presentation of truth, trying to help others who have not had that privilege as much as we have.
Anything else on this section?
I want to make a comment. You know, we're talking about this, and if you just look at the Gospels, you know, who was Jesus' disciples? They were tax collectors. They were, you know, he had prostitutes following him. He had all kinds of people. And the normal Jews, you know, just condemn these people. It's like, you know, you're not worthy. And how he converted them was he accepted them as imperfect people, but people that had the ability to change. And that's probably how you approach people, is you show them God's love, and even though they're wrong, they still have potential to change, and you got to show them that somehow. You know, how you show them, I think, is just plain, you know, kindness.
And we make this assumption that in order to fully change, everything has to be changed immediately. You know, change takes time, takes steps. How many of us have slowly had to work to bettering ourselves, to getting rid of certain things in our lives, and sometimes we fall back, but then we get back up and, you know, we keep going and trying again. It doesn't just all change immediately, but we forget that, though it took us a long time to get things in order, per se, and we still continue to do that. We expect everyone else then, when they're new in the faith, or just starting out, that they have to get it all right immediately, and that's not the case. Or I think people feel that way sometimes. And then once they mature, they don't remember that, and then so it's.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's like a learning session with most people. I think Saul was probably the only exception to that rule. because what he went through all of a sudden.
Yeah, but remember that Saul also had to spend a year or 2 or 3 where we don't know what was going on. So we don't know what, he was off the grid there for a bit.
That's a pretty quick time.
It was a quick change as conversion, but he remained, I believe he remained just at almost as, I don't use zealous, but as fervent in his beliefs and stuff as a Christian as he did as a Jew. Yes?
In verse 7, it says, do not be wise in your own ways. Do not be wise in your own eyes. So that explains a lot about human nature.
Right, we'll get to that.
Okay.
We still have to get through verses 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. Okay. What is trust? Especially in this case here.
It's unfailing obedience.
Okay? Feeling obedience.
Trust in or rely upon.
Okay. Faith. So I have to say about this. Trust, as he said, it's faith. It's going, I don't know what the future holds, but I know God holds it, and therefore I will go with, therefore I will obey.
I think maybe kind of means like rely. I mean,
Okay.
if you trust
That's
somebody
good.
to rely,
Right.
they'll be there to pick you up, or
Right.
here we're supposed to rely on God and not like our own, how like sometimes when things are bad, we think we've got to fix it. Well, you have to rely on God to take care of it when it's the right way.
As you said there, we want to fix it, we want to lean on our own understanding, our own, we want to go, okay, I can take, okay, this has happened, I can take care of it, I'm good, and then we find out that when it's not good, 2, we probably made it worse than 3, we have no clue what we're doing.
Well, I think that was Terry's sermon Sunday too, about how Sarah and Abraham relied on themselves to.
Oh, yeah, and we see that all throughout the Bible. Old Testament, New Testament, times when people would just go, okay, I got this, God, I can take care of it, and then problems arise, and some of those problems we're still dealing with in some ways.
I remember hearing sin defined as wanting to be independent of God. And if you want to be independent of God, you're not trusting Him, obviously.
I've never heard it phrased that way, but I like that. Sounds good. It's very sound.
It's like when Terry's sermons on King Saul, where he trusted in God at first, and then he got impatient,
Oh, yeah.
and he lost it.
He lost it multiple times. Well, first King Saul got impatient, and he was told, the kingdom will not continue after you passed away. And then he's told, we're just taking the kingdom away from you outright now. And though he was still king until he died, per se, a lot of people were following him. Well, he's not following as well as they used to, and it had to do with trust. And he did the one thing he could not do. He did sacrifice himself instead of waiting for Samuel and a priest or two.
I remember when I was a teenager, like a youth group and stuff, we discussed when are you closest to God, and everyone was saying, oh, when things go bad or I'm in trouble, then I rely on God. And I was thinking, I find myself relying on God or being close to God when everything's going fine. And then I realized that's because I'm doing what you were just talking about. When things were bad, I decided to take, matters in my own hands. So I was, kind of changed my thinking about when I really should be close to God.
Verse 5, I think, really flows to verse 3. Do not let kindness and truth leave you, and he's binding it around your neck. In other words, don't ever forget that. So what is truth? Verse 5, trust in the Lord with all your heart. God is truth. So if you bind him around, you constantly remember that, then you're not going to have that tendency to rely on your own understanding of what you think is perceived truth. And then later on in this chapter, 19 to 21, I even have to start with that. You can just show them what God's wisdom is. You can't question the truth of the one who created you and your entire essence.
I mean, we could try, but it's not probably never going to get us anywhere.
We constantly have that around our neck, not a rope.
Yeah. It's not a rope, it's not an albatross.
Yeah.
It's,
That we have God's truth. That should humble us. It gets what Gene talked about, all centers down humility. If we have humility, we're not going to always rely on our own understanding. We realize we are fallible.
Stephen, I don't know if you're done with that section, but I think verse 6 has caused a lot of consternation with people because they try to the best of their ability to honor God and acknowledge Him and reverence Him and follow Him, but then they get problems. You know, and here it says that He will make your path straight. And I think the Christian world as a whole, we have been pretty ignorant about what it means to have our paths straight. We sometimes build into that image things that God didn't promise. You know, again, reflecting on the Apostle Paul, you would think that after he converted, that God would have made it clear sailing for him. But in God's view, the thorn in the flesh was a message for Paul to keep from exalting himself. And, you know, Paul could have said, boy, I thought, you know, when I became a Christian, things would be better. And in some ways, he could have looked at that and said, I never had a thorn in the flesh before Christ, and now I've got one. So what's the reward to following Christ? So we've got to kind of re-educate ourselves and eradicate some of those built-in, preconceived notions about what God's going to give us when we come to follow Him.
because even if you look at Paul, even with all the, we don't know completely for sure exactly what happened shortly after his conversion. He might have been taken up somewhere and been given given some special instruction from God and Jesus to catch up on things that he wasn't with there for. But when he comes to Jerusalem afterwards, he has to have people vouch for him. He only goes actually goes and sees Peter and James and maybe one for other people because people are still afraid of him. They don't. He has that, and I think he has that. That haunts him the rest of his life, pretty much. The fact that he has that people fear him, and both Jews and Christians.
Well, and cumulatively, when you think of all that he went through, how would Paul read this verse? Would he say, "Yeah, the Lord made my path straight"? I think he would, but if some of us read it, we think, well, I got a terminal illness, or I've got a serious family heartache going on, or I lost my job, or I've got a thorn in the flesh, and and we think that, where is God?
For me, the thing that I struggle with, if you train, now my Bible says, and he shall direct your paths, which to me is very different saying he shall make your path straight or smooth. Now that smooth, I'm really not sure how, now I know the idea of, people used to go break through mountains and things to make a smooth path for a king to make it from one city to the other. Maybe slightly something similar here, but the idea of God directing your path and him saying, okay, and now I'm not saying literally hear him say, well, you turn left here, go right here, take this, but for him to say, okay, just follow me, if you follow me, you'll know when to go, you'll know what to do when the time comes. Not necessarily in the way we were talking about Sunday, but You know what's, just kind of being able to decipher between this will glorify God, this will probably not, something like that.
Make your path straight, to me, isn't saying, I'm going to give you the easy path. Doesn't say that at all. Make your path straight. It's kind of, I look at that like, if you're in a sailboat, the sail's going to get buffeted by the winds. But as long as you have a rudder, you're going to go straight. If you don't have a rudder, you're going to be all over the place. So without God's truth as the biggest part of your life, you have no rudder. You're going to be all over the place. But with God, no matter what we face, we know what our destination is, and we're straight to it.
How do you recognize God's guidance? That's what I have a problem with. How do you recognize his guidance?
Good question. I don't think there's a simple answer to that.
I know.
I'll be honest, there are certain doors in my life that I have spent years trying to break up, to open and to break down. And after a while, I just go, okay, you know what? I'm not going to try to break this door down anymore. I'm just going to kind of step back here and see if maybe a little window opens up somewhere or something like that. And I'm going to stop trying to control the situation and see if something different happens. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it comes in a form completely unexpected.
James and John, sons of Zebedee, God guided them both to answer Don's question, and you're right, it's not simple. James was beheaded very early on. John lived a long life. But to tie in Nick's, that doesn't mean John's life was easy. And that doesn't mean that James's life was not worth anything. I mean, that's the sovereignty of God. Who can discern?
The wording makes a big difference. Like when you say direct your path, when you were talking about how God eventually, kind of helps you show the way, and make your path smooth sounds like, oh, it's smooth sailing. There's a big difference in the wording. I don't know what the original meant, but I mean, I have that the word direct means to be right or upright or pleasing. So whatever, if you trust in God, you're going to be pleasing Him. Doesn't mean He's going to be pleasing you at the time when you're walking the path. But the word direct, the original says it's yasha, which means to be straight, right, upright, pleasing, good. So in that kind of, your path's going to be pleasing to God if you trust in Him.
Is there a deeper meaning to kindness?
That's a good question.
Kindness?
Yeah.
We're done with that, Linda.
Well, no, we can go back.
But no, my question about that is, even a non-Christian shows kindness in different ways. But, if I didn't have a 40-minute ride home, there are days I would be fine now. But it doesn't mean that I'm not a Christian and that my attitude should be different than that. But, we let self get involved in too much of this. That's the main thing.
I think kindness is really shown the most when you really don't want to give it out, when you don't want to be it. And I'm not saying you to be doing it begrudgingly or things like that, but sometimes it just takes, biting your tongue and going, this is not the right time, this is not the right place, this is not the right thing, I'm letting extenuating circumstances dictate my behavior towards someone else. I'm sorry, I do that to you all the time. That's right.
You could almost define kindness as selflessness. Not selfishness, but selflessness. Being able to give, to share, and not to think, let ego and pride control you, but let love spread your, God's light to other people, to reflect that light.
Mom and Jeannie?
I think what Linda was saying, she feels like she's not being kind, but I think sometimes we try to control circumstances. And I think that's what we end up doing. We start trying to control something. And we start thinking that way. We start thinking about, I'm not kind, I'm not,
Well, I think her question is a great question, and anytime I study these words that we seem to take for granted and talk about, I kind of try to look back at the actual definitions of the actual word. Sometimes there's connotations that a word has that really set it apart from other synonyms. You know, I mean, there's a difference in, a shade of meaning of difference in mercy and kindness, but they can be thought of a lot
Yeah, they're
the
very,
same.
yeah, that's, mercy at its core is a form of kindness in some ways, because it's, mercy is, and mercy is a form of grace in some ways. It can be. I mean, the big difference is, the big difference is, it's, for example, we will never, unless we're been washed in the blood of Jesus, we will never have that grace with God, per se. But think of it this way too, parents, you love your children and you forgive them. Why? Because they're your children and you love them even though they may not deserve something. You love them sometimes.
Your mother loves you all the time.
Oh, I know mom loves my brother all the time, but I'm sure there were times that can attest to that.
I don't like them all the time.
if that's what they did,
Oh, yeah. Mom and Dad were forgiven, but they were also punishing in a good way. It's good for you. And we had to learn through light stripes sometimes. Okay. Anything else on 5 and 6?
They directed your path, is that what you're saying?
Yes. Okay. Now, I think 7 and 8 kind of connected to 5 and 6. You know what? A lot of this actually connects together, but for some reason, in my translation at least, they're all little groups, like 2 verses or maybe 5 verses. So it makes it easier to break it down. But I think the idea was it was just, this is probably just one long, paragraph per se or something similar to that. So, verse 7, do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and depart from evil. It will be health to your flesh and strength to your bones. Okay. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Where are we told about people being wise in their own eyes at? In the Bible. It's mentioned twice in one book. No. Not Job. It might be mentioned in other places too, but I'm thinking of one very specific place here.
Ecclesiastes?
No, I'm actually thinking of Judges. The very last verse. In those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. That last sentence there, Jalen Barney calls that one of the scariest verses in the Bible. It's also one of the saddest verses in the Bible. The very last verse of Judges. And it's actually mentioned, but that same thing is mentioned a bit earlier, the idea of everyone doing what is right in their own eyes. That pretty much describes part of the book of Judges right there. And we have, okay, so for those that are not familiar with Judges, it's a very cyclical book. Basically, the people of Israel forget about God. Someone takes, a foreign power takes them over, God sends a judge, someone referred to as judge, pretty much to oversee Israel at the time, to ban, to remove the foreign power. Everyone believes again for a time, and this repeats again and again and again. Our lives are similar to that, can be very similar to that sometimes, I think, where we go and we find ourselves starting to trust, where we start going and, trusting our own understanding and doing what's right in our eyes and kind of forgetting about forgetting that we shouldn't be doing that. Now, we're not necessarily taken over by a foreign power per se, maybe this might happen on a macro scale, country-wise, things like that, but I'm talking, personally here, it's So I guess that foreign power would be sin that can take us over, but is anyone confused? Am I just rambling here or, no, okay.
Verse 8, it will be healing to your body. I have a footnote that says, the definition of word body, it will be healing to your navel.
I have the same one.
Okay.
Will be help to your navel and drink to your bones.
And part of the reason they would use the navel there, part of that reason, this is what I heard from some academic scholars, they could be very wrong on this, so don't take, this is just a theory per se. The idea was that they believe that that the heart, is very important, but that also a lot of your life force and strength came from your stomach. So your navel would be kind of the center of that, the belly button pretty much. So.
And today we discovered that 80% of your immune system is in your GI tract.
That explains a lot about my health issues. Sorry, come on.
Could they have brought the navel because of birth?
That might have to do with it, because, when you're born, you're still tied to your mother, physically, so they cut that cord. That might be part of it. And to us, it sounds very weird to think of it that way. So we have to sometimes go, okay, how were they thinking in time, time way back there, way then? I guess that's how I understand that connection there. I could be very wrong though. And also the fact too is, has anyone ever injured their stomach? You notice certain things very quickly. It's hard to stand, it's hard to breathe, it's hard to sit, it's hard to do anything. You pull a muscle in here, it's not, it's pulling a muscle anywhere is not good, but, the stomach's part of your core. It's the thing that's connecting you to your bottom half. So if this is hurt, this is strained or something, you're not functioning too well all of a sudden. So there is so when they were thinking that part of life was coming from there, part of your strength and things, there is some truth to that. They say getting shot in the stomach is one of the worst places to get shot because how it affects you in so many different ways. While your chances of survival are higher, the healing process is a lot more difficult.
I like the word you use, core. That's where this is getting at.
What do you think of a person that doesn't have a navel?
Did Adam and Eve have a navel?
I know, I doubt it. I know my niece's granddaughter doesn't have a navel.
I also have a footnote in that word evil. We always think it's wickedness, but the footnote says it's probably more like things that are bad for you. And you're talking about your health and your body and, all that stuff. So maybe it's not necessarily the part of evil, which would be like things that are bad for you, like perhaps smoking and drugs. I mean, that's nowadays, but I don't know what they'd be back then. But I think they might be talking about a little bit about physical stuff.
Well, I mean, they're told at some point in Proverbs, if you go to a house of someone and you don't exactly trust them, stick a knife to your throat and don't eat the food if you're not sure about it. So, there is that to some extent. I think it might be a bit of a combination of both here. I'm tending to look on the side of, because they're talking so much about trust and decision making, that it has to do with things that would be morally corrupting the body, but that could also be part of it there too, is the food itself. Fear the Lord and depart from evil. When they say fear the Lord, how do you think they mean fear?
Understand who God is and what He is capable of. And He's given you His word, so you respect that word. And if you are going through a lot of evil, then you should have natural fear of what the repercussions are, what the results are of your straying from God's word.
Once again, fearing God is being obedient. And Proverbs again and again says, if you want to live, be obedient. And maybe they're not always talking, I'm just realizing maybe that this obedience, this life we're talking about, it might not always just be earthly life. They could be talking on later on, it's obedient, because we're told time and time again in Ecclesiastes that good things happen to good people sometimes, good things happen to bad people sometimes. But Ecclesiastes also, though, tends to be so focused on earthly life, I think, and Proverbs, I think, is kind of looking a bit beyond that, per se. I could be very wrong at this. I could be completely misunderstanding it, but... Anything else on 7 and 8? Okay, we'll use your 9 and 10 then. I don't think we're not going to finish this tonight.
You've got the core of it, but we're just 1 week.
Just 1 week? Okay.
Yeah, otherwise we're going to mess up.
Okay, what do I really, really want to tell you from this then, for the rest of it? I'll just summarize very quickly. Verses 9 and 10 are pretty much telling us to use what you have to honor God. That can be talents, that can be physical possessions. Verses 11 and 12, God has our best interests at heart. And we briefly talked about this. We tend to have, when we are given reproof, when we are being corrected, we tend to not react with acceptance and humility, but with denial and anger first. And there's where humility comes in. Verses 13 through 18, wisdom is personified as a woman. That goes throughout the whole book for the most part. Of wisdom brings good things. 19 through 20, God founded the earth by wisdom. God only does what is right. So by God deciding to make us, he decided to do what was right. That is a whole other idea and concept right there. That's another series, I think. That's how I'm interpreting it, at least. Verses 21 through 26, wisdom and discretion. Have to have trust and confidence in God. Confidence in God is, like trust, is saying, I don't know where this path is taking me, but I know it will take me to where I need to be, even if it's not necessarily where I want to be. Verses 27 through 30, do not withhold good. Always do it. Don't just go, okay, I might be able to do this. No, just go ahead and do it. Do what is good. And finally, 31 through 35, do not envy those who harm us. A lot of times we look at people who maybe don't have our best interests at heart, and sometimes we either envy them or we sometimes idolize them because we want to be like them because they seem to have it good. Don't envy them. Don't want to be like them. And grace to the humble and the wise, they will inherit glory. So, once again, humility and wisdom. And the two kind of go hand in hand with each other. That's Proverbs 3 in a nutshell. Any other questions, comments?
Very good.
Yeah,
Next week, Ray Miller says 1 Corinthians 13.
The chapter of love and kindly symbols. So this Sunday, we have, we're continuing on from lesson 16, was it? Okay.
We'll wrap that up.
Yeah, we'll wrap that up at church. We have Lads to Leaders. Lads to Leaders will go from when church ends until pretty much until the Fall Fest begins, which is around 4 o'clock, right?
Right.
Okay, so Fall Fest from 4 to 6-ish. Please come. Bring kids, bring yourselves, bring friends, bring family. Have some fun. Spend time with each other. Anything more we need to know about that?
No, we had on the newsletter that we were going to have flag retirement, but we're not going to do that this time.
Still too few flags?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, let's say number 410, number 410. First two verses. And Keith goes up.
He leadeth me, O blessed thought, O words with heavenly comfort fraught. Whate'er I do, where'er I be, still 'tis God's hand that leadeth me. He leadeth me by His own hand. He leadeth me. His faithful follower I would be, for by His hand He leadeth me. Sometimes with scenes of deepest truth, sometimes where Eden's towers bloom, by waters still or troubled sea, still 'tis God's hand that leadeth me. He leadeth me by His own hand. He leadeth me. His faithful follower I would be, for by His hand He leadeth me.
Let us pray. Father, it's with great humility and humble ourselves to you. Help us to keep this thought in our heads that you are the creator of everything, even the creator of man. Help us to understand your word and apply it to our lives daily. Help us to carry our cross daily as Jesus has asked us to. Jesus is our path, a straight and narrow path. As long as we follow on His path, we will never go astray. But when we do, help us to remind, go to Christ and look at you through Him. Help those that are traveling at this byways and byways at this time, keep them safe and reach their destination safely. Welcome them back home to us and help them as a family of God worship together. Help us always to keep the mind of Christ in our lives. In His precious name we pray. Amen.
Well, you know what?
You know how you were saying about Mine's also. So we can, that's why you have to stop on.
Stephen, just tell me, did you come up with that song during